No means no, maybe means no, and even yes sometimes means no. This is a great guideline when it comes to consent, but let's talk about that maybe. Is it worth leaving room for ambiguity in consent? What happens if you haven't made up your mind? When it comes to consent, is there room for maybe? Hi everyone, my name is Sarah and welcome back to Everyday Consent. I was inspired to make this video as a response to the article by Mark Manson entitled Yes or No, link in the description. That article makes the argument that when it comes to dating, relationships, sex, etc., we should adopt what he calls the law of yes or no, which states, when you want to get involved with someone new, in whatever capacity, they must inspire you to say yes in order for you to proceed with them. Similarly, they must respond with a yes in order for you to proceed with them. The idea here is that it's really not worth getting involved with someone if the two of you are not mutually excited about getting involved with each other. Doing so could go very badly in the worst cases. Continuing to pursue someone that hasn't shown much interest can easily get creepy, and in extreme cases can go so far as stalking. But even in less extreme cases, where they have shown some interest but maybe not consistently, it still means investing time and effort into someone who might just not be that into you, or at least isn't putting in the same effort. And everyone deserves better than that. For the most part, I really agree with what the author is saying, and it's worth reading because he explains this really well. But something really bugged me about this article when I first read it, and it took me a long time to pin down what exactly I thought was wrong. This idea is mostly great, but there's this feeling of dismissal of maybe and other more ambiguous positions. I understand the intention is to simplify how we think about our actions and our interactions, but I'm not sure that simplification is the best strategy in every case. Where simplification is the right strategy is when making the decision about what immediate action to take. Either you're going to take the next step, or you're not. So the yes or no simplification helps you translate the potentially complicated answer into one of those two simpler options. And this is a great practical policy for helping you decide what to do and for playing it safe with everyone's comfort levels. But let's not be too hasty in dismissing more ambiguous answers as a no and moving on. More ambiguous answers than just yes or no do exist. There are excited but tentative yeses. Like if someone really does want to have sex and is enthusiastic about the idea, but is also new to the experience and not totally sure they know what they're getting into. And there are also different kinds of maybes. Some maybes are a no in disguise. Like if someone says maybe out of politeness or because they think they're expected to say yes. But other maybes feel really different from a no. Like when it's a maybe but not right now, or when it's a maybe depending on how it'll change the relationship. Many times, a maybe isn't enough for an enthusiastic yes, but is also different from an outright no. And that difference matters when you're figuring out what it is you actually want or when you're negotiating a longer relationship. It's worth breaking down those maybes to try to understand all the factors that might be contributing to them. Maybes are really interesting. Maybe is often a signal of some internal conflict or something that you haven't finished thinking through yet. And there's a lot to be said for investigating that maybe to better understand what emotional, social, logistical, or other issues are at play under the surface. This investigation can be a source of learning, of growth, and of self-discovery. But maybes are also really scary. They're disappointing to hear because they're a no that seems so close to a yes. And sometimes that can be even harder to swallow than an outright rejection. But a big part of why maybes are scary is because they're ambiguous. As humans, we don't like ambiguity. We like labeling, sorting, and finding patterns. And that's usually a good impulse. That drive is hugely important in helping us understand the world around us. But it also means that we can get really uncomfortable when we haven't pinned something down yet. And we might go to great lengths to avoid that discomfort. But ambiguity and the confusion it causes are not awful things. And more importantly, they're often unavoidable. In order to understand anything, you have to first work through your confusion. But we generally find confusion rather uncomfortable, so we sometimes try to avoid the problem by lashing out in anger or turning to some other form of distraction. Or we may rush through the process of understanding, which inevitably leads to oversimplification. And where there is oversimplification, there is room for error. That error might be unimportant, or it might have consequences. Let's say you want to make a roast chicken. Just bear with me here. You don't have a recipe, but no worries, you can simplify this. All you have to do to roast a chicken is take a whole chicken and put it in an oven for a while, right? Easy. Okay. But if that's really all you're going off of, there's some room for error here. For example, you don't know anything about how long the chicken needs to be in the oven or what temperature it needs to be set at. If you get those wrong, you could end up with raw chicken and salmonella. And technically, we didn't even specify the chicken had to be dead. And if you just take a live chicken and put it in a cold oven for a while, well, You might end up with eggs, but probably not the roast chicken you were going for. This example is silly, but the general principle should be clear. Simplification is useful, but can only take you so far. And relying on simplification alone has some problems. So sometimes it's really worth looking at something more complexly. In many cases, maybe is actually composed of a collection of smaller yeses and nos. For example, say you're making out with someone and they ask you if you want to have sex. You feel conflicted, so you say maybe. But what led to that maybe? Let's break down the different parts that might have you feeling conflicted. It might be that you love spending time with that person, so you're an yes to that. And you're really enjoying making out with them too, so you're an yes to continuing to make out with them. Maybe you're even an yes to eventually having sex with them. But maybe you have to wake up really early and are a no to staying up much later. Or instead, maybe you're feeling insecure about your body, and so far are a no to feeling comfortable enough with them to be naked in front of them. But maybe you are an yes to spending more time with them to see if you could become that comfortable eventually. All of these further pieces of information are really valuable. If you take the time to tease them apart, you have a much better understanding of yourself, how you feel about the other person, and what you are and are not okay with. And if you decide to share this information with your partner, it's really helpful for them too. They'll understand you better, and they'll also have a better understanding of where they stand with you and how to better account for your needs in the future. Now you both have useful information that you only got by examining that maybe head on instead of oversimplifying it to a no. And this was possible to do while still using that oversimplification to help you decide your specific actions in the moment, and to help keep you and your partner from overstepping any boundaries. So what do you think? How do you deal with maybes when it comes to consent? Do you deal with them differently than you do with no's? Let me know down in the comments, or you can always email me at everydayconsent@gmail.com. Hit the like button if you liked this video, and if you want to see more from me, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks everyone, happy consenting, and I'll see you next week. Depending on how I will change the right...